So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the kind of legal threat that ports and councils are taking against the government over the essentially the physical infrastructure they built around ports in Britain, and which aren't going to be used because we're not doing physical checks of EU goods. I mean, this stuff is wild. You're talking a massive waste of taxpayer money. So thanks, Mog, for that.
It's Britain's second busiest cross-channel port. Every year, 250,000 lorries pass through Portsmouth carrying goods to and from Europe. To continue doing so, they were told to build a £25 million border control centre to carry out the government's new post-Brexit checks on imports, which were due to begin this month.
So this is something the government imposed on them and told them that you have to build this infrastructure. So this is on the government, the port. I don't know if they actually wanted to do this, but in the end they felt like, I think they had to, because the UK were talking about doing physical checks on EU exports into the UK. And the simple fact is we can't do what most other countries can do, which is check out the goods coming into the country.
The lorries come in with the meat and the poultry from there. The goods are taken to the freezers and then to the inspection rooms.
But 2 months ago, the government announced the new checks would be put on hold until at least the end of next year. And with a review looking at creating a digital border for most goods in future, this facility may never actually be needed.
And, I was looking at the article that Sky did, and you're talking about state-of-the-art facility with, high-quality freezers, etc., which I don't know what happens to that stuff now. Are you going to stick that stuff on eBay? Like, what are you supposed to do?
While the government paid out £17 million towards the cost, the council, which owns the port, had to borrow the remaining £7.8 million, and it's an ongoing drain on resources.
Where did they borrow the 7.8 million from? What did they borrow from the government? Did they borrow from a bank? Where did that money come from? And what's the interest rate like on it?
Costing £1 million a year to run, and that was meant to be funded by the people using it. Now the government says nobody needs to use it. How am I meant to find £1 million from that? It'll have to come from council taxpayers here in Portsmouth.
So you've got a thing which was meant to essentially fund itself and maybe make some money for the local council here by doing import checks, because it's the importer that pays for it, the use of it, everything that goes along with the checks, and that's not going to happen now. So you've got a situation where the council, which a lot of people here do vote Conservative. It looks like it's a Labour council based on the 2022 election results that Wikipedia have got here. You've got the total council, being 17 Lib Dems, 13 Conservatives. And at the end of the day, these Conservatives, not the ones in the council, but the government, have a lot to answer for, because this is £1 million being wasted a year by the council, essentially, and it's not even their fault.
The message to government is if they don't compensate you, then you will take legal action.
Yes, absolutely. It is down to the government to sort out this mess.
This border control post was designed to inspect 50,000 lorry loads of goods a year. Physical spot checks on animal and plant products, meat, fish, vegetables, fruit and timber. But Portsmouth isn't the only one. Facilities like this one have been built all over the country, and they're all currently standing empty.
Altogether, 41 border control posts have been set up at ports, railway stations and airports. The government gave out £200 million in grants to help pay, but the funding was massively oversubscribed, so the ports themselves also paid around £100 million to get the work done.
So let's break this down. You've got £200 million worth of taxpayers' money being wasted on this stuff, right, on these projects, the infrastructure projects, right? The government under-anticipated how much it would cost. They thought it would be 200 million. Evidently it wasn't. It was 300 million. And so you've got the councils having to get the funding from somewhere, be it, a loan or some sort. They had to find £100 million, right, in order to build this extra infrastructure, which will never be used. Madness.
The government claimed the decision not to impose the new controls this year will save traders up to £1 billion and help with the cost of living.
That's an importer there being interviewed who's really happy about it, but we're going to move on. But the argument that they're saving people £1 billion a year is ridiculous when this was a consequence of Brexit. This was a consequence of Brexit. That cost should have been passed on to traders and then the consumer, because this is what all third countries have to do here. You have to do import checks. Otherwise, you're in breach, potentially, of WTO rules. And, she's written up the article, which goes into more detail about this. about the legal action, etc., which is a really good piece, a good work from Sky News here. A lot of credit has to go to the journalist here and how she managed to set this up. If we go back to check her name quickly, Amanda Akas, a lot of credit goes to her for this. So the post due to be set up and running this month, it was meant to be done in July, were designed to carry out post-Brexit physical checks on imports of plant and animal products from the EU, a measure that was meant to come in force from the 1st of July. So it should have happened. The EU were ready from the jump. They even offered us a longer transition period. We said, how are you stupid? And I guess we were the stupid ones. They may now never be used as planned, and I don't think they would be. Portsmouth is the second busiest channel port, and every year 250,000 lorries pass through carrying goods to and from Europe, and some of this stuff will be agri-foods, stuff that should be checked. Its £25 million border control post was finished on time for the July deadline, so they did what they were told to do. It's ready to go, but the state-of-the-art facility is standing empty. It will never be used. It's just a waste of port space. £25 million, £1 million to keep this thing going every year. I mean, if you're in the council for Portsmouth, you got to be thinking, what the hell am I supposed to do here? And if you're in this area here, Portsmouth, as a council taxpayer, you got to be thinking your council tax now, instead of going to bin collection or wherever the money goes normally to the libraries, it's going to go to this thing. Surely you got to be angry at this. Fair enough, they just had elections, but come on, man. Its 25 million border control post was finished on time. We mentioned that. Government, with a government under review underway, looking at the use of technology to create a digital border system for most goods in future, so physical checks may not even happen. The port believes the building may end up largely redundant. It's not going to happen. I mean, there is an issue. Obviously, the Tory leadership thing is going on, but which Tory leadership candidate is going to vote to increase the cost of living even further? I mean, all of the ones that are in the cabinet were part of this. Collective responsibility exists. All of these cabinet ministers agreed effectively, because this has to be signed off by cabinet, that we would not do physical inspections of EU goods. All of them voted essentially to breach WTO rules, in my opinion. The border control post was originally designed to carry out 50,000 physical spot checks a year on goods like meat, fish, cheese, vegetables, fruit and timber. 50,000, so that effectively the import would have to pay for this border facility post to be used. That would be passed on to the consumer, but that's how they were going to effectively keep this port going with these infrastructure projects. The building includes sterile refrigerator units and freezers kept at -21°C, which again, that would all have to be checked as well periodically, because you have a health and safety hazard there. It was due to be staffed by 67 officials, so it would only create around 67 jobs. It really not a lot, including vets. We already have a shortage of vets. Technical officers, don't know what they are, and port staff. This wouldn't have created a ton of jobs in Portsmouth, but it would have cost a lot of money just for the infrastructure and the electricity costs. Unlike the country's other ports, Portsmouth is owned by the local council, which uses the profits to fund services. So effectively, any profit that this infrastructure would have made would have gone back into the local economy and actually kind of helped them a bit. But what's happened is they've wasted, they're going to waste £1 million a year on this thing. While it received £17.1 million from the government, it still had to borrow £7.8 million to cover the total costs of the construction of the facility. The question is, where did they get the £7.8 million from? The ongoing operational costs are also to cause a serious drain on resources. So, the people of Portsmouth, are you happy with this? He says he's looking at taking legal action against the government alongside other ports. So this is the head of the council, I think. He says, we already have consulted lawyers and already talked to other ports. This is their project and they need to pay for it. It's down to the government to sort out this mess. And the problem is now, the government is non-existent. You've got Johnson as effectively the caretaker. There won't be a new Tory leader until September. They're going to have to figure this thing out. If I were these ports now, I would start legal action, because legal action could take years. And effectively, we don't know who's going to be in charge at the time. I can't see, unless Liz Truss wins, I don't know who would be a minister under Liz Truss. Under any Tory other candidate. So Liz Truss and Nadine Dorries have words are failing me now. Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries have put their support behind Liz Truss, because she's the only one who's probably stupid enough to make them a minister. I don't know who else would. And so who would deal with this fallout? I don't know. Apart from, it will be the Tory party, hopefully. But this is really, really good work here from the journalist Amanda Akas. A lot of credit goes to her for this work that she's done. She's doing a lot of work that I'd want to see the BBC doing. But so credit to her. Maybe I'll drop her email saying great stuff here. I don't know. Probably not worth the time. But thanks if you've watched the video so far. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. £300 million of taxpayer money wasted, £100 million potentially of ports and council money wasted. How's that going to be recouped? Let me know what you think. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.